Figured I'd show these in case somebody else was interested in wanting to do the same thing. Um, so I live in an area that's prone to wildfire, and I wanted a lot of large, tall, sturdy sprinklers that I could put around the property just to kind of get things wetted down and cool things off, raise the humidity in the event of wildfire. And I was looking around all over the place because I wanted something that was ridiculously overbuilt, non-flammable, and very tall and very stable. And I really couldn't find anything, at least not anything like remotely that I could afford. And of course, there's 1,001 options out there for different types of sprinklers and what have you, and there's lots and lots and lots of tripod sprinklers out there. But one thing that I wanted something where I could supply water into the back of it with a female garden hose, and then also pass water completely through it with a male garden hose on the other side and a shutoff valve on it. And like I was saying, I'm well aware that this is way overkill. I've got a Milwaukee rising stem valve on here, so that's in the fully open position. You can see the distance there, and when it's fully closed, you can see like so. And so the cool thing about that is from a distance you can see if it's open or closed, which I rather like. And also these are made in US, and you can get parts for these things and what have you. Yeah, probably gonna go round in circles here like normal, I suppose. But yeah, so everything I tried to buy US made as much as I could, because I don't want to support China, and the US makes much better quality stuff that you can actually get parts for. And so the reason for this valve, for one, was I got a really good price on 12 of them, because I'm doing 12 of these sprinklers. They are really good quality American-made valves, like I said, that you can get parts for. And gate valves, at least in my opinion, are the most resistant to freezing. When you have them mounted vertically like this, so long as the gate is up and you allow them to drain, they're essentially good to go. A ball valve, if you open it all the way, then it can collect water in between the ball and the housing, if you will, and crack. And so you're actually supposed to have them halfway. But then if they're halfway, they're supposed to be halfway in like a winter storage, type situation. But if you have them horizontal, then they won't necessarily drain in between the ball and the housing. So that's why I wound up with these. I found a really good price for 12 of them on eBay. And then I got I only have 2 ward fittings. I got 1 ward fitting here and 1 ward fitting here. Again, made in USA. I want to support our own economy, not a bunch of fucking communists. And then the pipe here is a Anvil brand. And they are still Hebrew pipe, but the weld seam inside of them is almost non-existent. They are extremely smooth on the inside. And here's a closer look at these ward fittings. I don't think these T's actually say US on them anywhere. But all their other stuff is made in US, and you can see how smooth, for a cast fitting, mind you, these are on the inside. And then I got a 3/4 to 1/2 inch reducer here, and those do actually say US on them. But these ward fittings are not actually that much more than offshore Taiwan bullshit, but the quality of them is much, much better in my experience. And it's one thing, you know, over the video you can kind of get an idea of how smooth they are, but in person, actually holding these things, they're phenomenally smooth for a cast fitting. They're obviously not, you know, like, you know, super duper CNC machined or whatever. They are still cast, but they do a very good job with it. And I guess here's that Milwaukee valve with the rising gate in it. The sprinkler heads for the... Oh, damn it, I got shmoo on me. The sprinkler heads, at least for the partial circle ones, you know, like the ones that you can set to only spray like a specific pattern. Those are unfortunately in Mexico, but I've had these around for a while and just, you know, use what I got on hand essentially. But I've got a couple for I've got a couple partial circle rainbirds, but the majority of the sprinklers are going to have these WeatherTech full circle sprinkler heads on here. The reason that I wanted the full circle ones is for wetting things down for wildfire. I don't want a partial circle. I want them to go around full tilt, like go around 360, and I'll place them around the house and wet down the deck and all the little nooks and crannies around the house and what have you. And obviously these partial circle ones, there's a lot more components on these things and stuff to go wrong and things to break and what have you. But they can, yeah, see this one's set to like the return. Yeah, so even though this little lever here is flipped up, Jesus Christ, even though this little lever is flipped up, you know, if it was to get bumped or whatever, then it would be in the return setting and it doesn't spray water as far. So this one, of course, you can see is much simpler. There's, you know, only the, you know, fitting that goes into the sprinkler, the cast piece, and the arm here for like the major components, and then of course there's springs and sealing washers and what have you, but certainly fewer components to go wrong on that one there. And these are a rather small orifice. I believe these are 732 orifice. My thought process was I would rather have a small amount of water over a long period of time than, you know, a huge amount of water over a short period of time. Also, I'm limited on the size of pump that I have and my water supply, and so I'd rather, usually, not always, usually there's at least a couple hours warning before like the house is, you know, necessarily in danger. So I figure that'll give me time to get these things out and get them set up and get them spraying water before I have to, you know, shit my pants too much. But I did make sure that this orifice here is larger than the inlet screen on my draft hose, so that anything that goes through the draft hose will come out through the sprinkler and not get stuck in there. And so, like I said, I'm doing 12 of these things. This one here was the original one that I did actually a couple years ago, and then I've just been collecting parts over time. And this is half-inch round bar and maybe like 3/8 rebar or something like that. The other 11 are going to be done out of this, which I'm going to take a shot in the dark and say that's maybe 5/8, 3/4 rebar, something like that. And then this is probably, I don't know, a little under half rebar or something like that. And I actually pulled all the rebar out of a scrap pile, so that was pretty cool. And then I made, that looks kind of funny. Looks like part of a pentagram or whatever. But I made a little jig, I guess, if you will. because I've got enough of these to do that it was worth it to make a little jig here. So, like so. And then, of course, it's not sitting in there quite perfect, but you get the idea. The top of these sprinkler heads here is like 53 inches off the ground. And I haven't weighed these things. Obviously, these here with the bigger rebar, they've got more heft to them than this one here. I thought this one was just a wee bit lighter than I wanted. And I really like the way that these here turned out. And yeah, if you align the T under there to where the valve is in this opening here, then it works out really well to be able to get to the valve on there. And yeah, holy shit, going around in circles and my mind's scattered and shit, which is, you know, just another day for me. But yeah, these are obviously way overkill, and while I was patient and waited to find really good prices, like I bought all the valves off of eBay. You know, some guy was selling, you know, a dozen at a time for a third the price or whatever. And all the pipe nipples and the black iron fittings I got from supplyhouse.com. They have really good pricing on the American made stuff. And what I really like about Supply House is I really like that they offer the American made stuff, but they are at least descriptive. Like when you go on their website, you can choose, like, you know, black fittings imported or black fittings domestic. Personally, if I was them, I just wouldn't sell the import version, but I do like that they specify between the two. And so if you only want American stuff, then you can just buy American stuff. I haven't tallied up how much I have in each one of these. If I were to take a shot in the dark, I probably have $100 in each sprinkler, and I've got 12 of them, so, you know, that's a, you know, fair chunk of change. But at the same time, I couldn't find anything like this to buy. And, you know, on one hand, okay, yeah, that is, you know, expensive, but I've split it up over a couple years. I've been collecting parts for it for a while, like I said, waiting to find good prices and shit. But also, you know, these partial circle ones, these here I'm using just to, you know, irrigate the lawn and what have you. And hopefully that's all that I ever do with these sprinklers. And I'll use, you know, 4 or 5 of them to irrigate the lawn, and the others will just sit in, you know, holding and, you know, storage, and hopefully never use them. But I figure, you know, if it saves the house one time, then, you know, it's worth every penny that I put into them. And because they're so ridiculously overbuilt for just being a damn sprinkler, they're essentially going to last forever. So, you know, I don't think that's such a bad deal. You know, I can use these for, you know, what, 50 years or... well, shit, I don't know. I don't know that I'll live another 50 years, but I can use these for a long damn time and then pass them on to somebody else, so I guess that's not such a bad deal. I kind of got this idea from my neighbor who had a steel tripod sprinkler that, like, you know, her grandfather made in the fucking, you know, who knows, the 40s or something like that. And I actually borrowed that thing for a little while and was kind of sitting there looking at it and was like, you know, that's a really good idea. And so did my own here. But thankfully, at least for the majority of them, I didn't pay for the rebar. All the rebar I got out of the scrap pile, so that part's cool. I do obviously have a fair bit of time into putting these things together. But, you know, like I said, if it protects the house one time, then it's worth every bit of it. And I really don't need 12 at my place. I could probably get by with, you know, I don't know, 6 or 8 or something like that. And so if that then means that I, loan a couple out to the neighbors or whatever, then hey, all the better, right? And I guess that brings up a point too. So I have a well that I can run these things off of, and I also have a another water source that I can put an engine-driven pump into and run these sprinklers. The engine-driven pump that I have, in theory, should run all 12 sprinklers at 40, 50 psi or something like that, although I haven't actually tested it. That's something I need to do this summer. But one thing that I was going to say is that this is not something that you would want to do, whether it be sprinklers in the yard or sprinklers on the roof or whatever, if you are going to run it off of city water. Reason being is that fire hydrants, and that's really the main thing, is fire hydrants are run off of city water. Like if you live in town and you've got a fire hydrant in front of your house, the same piping that runs your garden faucets and the kitchen sink is the same piping that runs the fire hydrant. And so if everybody in the city was to have 10 sprinklers on their roof or whatever that they turned on in preparation of like wildfire or whatever, it drastically will reduce the water pressure available for the hydrants. And it's a bigger priority in most cases, not 100%. It's a bigger priority to have the pressure and flow available at the hydrants. For me, I have a totally independent water source, and the nearest city water hydrant to me is several miles. I'm not exactly sure how close it is, but I can run these things totally and completely independently from anybody else and not affect anybody else's water supply. Just something to keep in mind, I guess. You don't want to, think about yourself and screw the other guy, essentially. But yeah, figured I'd show that. If anybody's got any questions, let me know. Figured I should actually put a video clip in there of the things actually working, but at the same time, I mean, it's just a sprinkler doing sprinkler things. But yeah, so with the previous one there was the first one in line from the water source, and then this one here is the second one. Of course, nice thing about the valve is just shut off the valve, and that can be the last one in line. I got to get these things all put together and what have you, but I think I can run like probably 4 of them daisy chained together off of my well pump, because they're fairly small orifice size in them. And I've got, I guess just to point it out, made in the US Continental garden hose. That shit is somewhat expensive to buy. It's like $75 a foot or whatever, but it lasts forever and is very, very robust. And that there is 5/8. Of course, you could run 3/4. And the whole point for all this shit being 3/4 is to try and get the least amount of restriction as is reasonably possible. And I guess I should say too, so of course, I'm on a well, so I've got an independent water source from like city water or whatever. But during a fire, they cut off the utility power, and lately in recent years, even in anticipation of a fire, they cut off utility power. But of course, that's the reason for the engine-driven pump off of a totally separate water source. Like I've got a water source, drop draft hose in, engine-driven pump, and away you go. And also, generator for the well pump. And that way you can be totally independent.